Hello and welcome to the Relevate Defense community. Today we're going to be talking about ISO certifications. What are they? Why do you need them? And which ones do you need if you're going to work with government and defense? Today I've got James with me. How you going, James?
Great, mate. Good to be here.
So obviously having a lot of experience in the defense space, getting people qualified up and certified, not only to work with defense, but also to work with, the primes. I guess just to qualify, do you want to tell us a bit about your experience in dealing with ISO certifications?
Certainly. So my career in defence and defence industry spans about 20 years, half of that in uniform, half of that out of uniform, working across two defence primes in Australia. And during my time at both Boeing and Raytheon, my teams dealt a lot with small to medium enterprises trying to get into defence industry. So as part of that, we were really able to look at all of the different systems that these companies had in place and provide them very direct guidance on what they needed to cross the barrier into defence industry, for lack of a better term. I've also been a program manager for a few advanced research and development programs. So anytime metal was being cut, we had to comply with the appropriate Australian or international standard.
And I think, it's important today to really just focus on, we're aiming at trying to help the small businesses get off the ground, all the SMEs, just to get their foot in the door with government and defense. And so, what we're going to be talking about is just the essentials. What do you actually need? What's your ticket to play in order to get even a look in to any of these government contracts? And, there's a huge list, and in our defense community, we've got a big list of certifications that you need. This is definitely not exhaustive. This is just some of the ones that we've come across. And, there's hundreds more. We've got ISO, which stands for like international standards. And then you've got AS, which is the Australian standards. And then you've got, things like a foreign standards placed on top, like ITAR or even certifications like the DISP, which we spoke about in an earlier podcast. But out of these, like obviously there's so many, and that whilst it probably takes a lot of time and money, I would imagine, depending on how big your organization, how complex that you do, the things that you do, it could be like 30 to 50 grand just to certify, and then you've got annual audits. Obviously, you don't want to go and do that for all of these. So which ones would you need as a bare minimum to get a look in?
Oh, look, I think you've captured it really well there. I've personally seen some companies who had a lot of startup capital try to chase these ISO certifications like post-nominals coming out of university. Or the more I have, the better. And really, 99% of them were superfluous to what they needed to become a part of defence industry. If we look at all of these, which is not an exhaustive list, two I want to focus on here is the ISO 27001 Information Security Management Standard and ISO 9001 Quality Management. The reason these are so important is because wherever you go in defence industry, you're going to need to comply with a certain level of product and system quality, so ISO 9001, and as part of your progression through the Defence Industry Security Program and becoming certified to hold and use protected information, you're going to need to have a really high quality information security management system. So there's your 27001. On top of that, for some players who want to play in the aerospace industry, you might also see the AS 9100, which is very much like the ISO 9001. It's a quality management system standard, but it places additional restrictions and additional requirements on holders for industry specifics in aviation because of the danger of getting it wrong.
So I guess, like what you're saying before, there's the academics and going at every possible outcome that or every certification that they can get their hands on. I think, going for certifications could be a full-time job and a complete distraction from running your actual business. I think that you could spend a couple of $1 million easily just on the certifications, let alone the internal time cost to prepare your organization and have the right documents, processes, and procedures in place to handle those. So ideally, like if we're talking two, you mentioned the 2700, which is the information security, and then you mentioned the 9001, which was the quality management. I think even if you're just going to do an ordinary everyday business and you're not even thinking about government, I think they're two really good certifications to go for. And I think that if you want, particularly if you want to be a professional business that, is adhering to, globally recognized quality practices and continuous improvement and things like that. But then I also think that, the investment on that, whilst it might add up to be around, $30,000 to $50,000, when you're working on 2,700, a lot of those principles are probably also good for quality management and vice versa. So it's not as expensive when you go for two of those at once. Also, you don't have to do it all at once. Maybe you could just do one. And because you've done one, it's a lot easier to get the next one. I would say, at the very least, do the quality management one, because the InfoSec one is more if you're handling a lot of info. But, in some cases, people are doing defense work or government work, mowing the lawns or, hanging up signage or fire safety systems or something like that. And I think that it would be wise just to, well, like we mentioned, if you want to get into government, you need one of those or both of those to really tick the box. So I think a small business wanting to be a big business should definitely align themselves with that. And there is such a thing as alignment too. Like, sorry, I'm going on around here, but you don't have to certify. You could align and you be 90% of the way there. You can buy the manual, you can spend a couple $100 and you can get access to the manual and you can start moving your business in that direction. And if you do that early, by the time you actually need to certify, it's probably not that much extra work to actually get it over the line or get an auditor in and just double check everything and tell you maybe a few findings that you weren't up to scratch, in which case it's a lot easier to fix than going from 0 to 100 on this certification that all of a sudden you decide you need or you decide you want. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. I think if you're looking to grow and scale your business, well, it makes sense to have a quality management system and an information security management system in place already. And if you think about it as keeping the end in mind, where do you want to be? Whether you want to operate in defense industry, in mining or oil and gas, any of those big industries that have a lot of carry a lot of risk around getting things wrong. Well, why don't you start the way you want to finish? Start putting in place things from the beginning that, as you said, align to these standards. And then when the time comes, you should have hopefully the money there ready to get the agency in, get someone in to package it all up, get the paperwork done, and send it off, so you can get the rubber stamp certification, knowing full well that you've been operating like this from the start, and this isn't new information.
You raise a very interesting point there about co-benefit. And, one of the things we try to promote within the defense community is you're not just building a business for defense or for government, you're building a business to last. And a lot of those core principles, can apply to, like you said, transport, mining, any kind of like oil and gas, all of those complex industries that need something decent and certifiable and quality behind it. And you know what? It's just good practice. Like if you want to run a business that doesn't require you as the owner to be wearing every hat and everything melting, you need processes written down. You need structure. You need reporting lines. If something goes wrong, you got to have a way to deal with it. And that's what quality management is about. And 2,700, everyone's got a computer or a phone, like even a baby in a pram at 3 months old can hit something, download some malicious hardware or software onto your device to then have a backdoor hacking process to pull out all your data and your contacts. So you may as well have some good IT practices. It just can't hurt. So I think also like having the focus on having business that is defense and also business that is not defense is absolutely critical for long-term survival. Anyone looking to get, multi-million-dollar contracts, that's well and good. But if you get, fat on the government dime, and then all of a sudden, you're not fit enough to operate in the private sector, once that contract stops, then everything's going to fall over. And so having good business practices is just good business practice.
Absolutely. I think if we can give a message to the people out there watching and listening to this, think about where you want to be, and don't think about it as, oh, I'm not big enough, I'm not complex enough to need a quality management system. Your quality management starts from day one when you're making sure the product and information and communication that goes out your door meets a certain standard. That's quality management. So why not reference the standard from the start and build incrementally until such time as you're ready to, to drink from the well you've already built, because you didn't wait until you needed a drink before you built it.
And like I know the business owner that started the company themselves, it's their baby. They're always going to go, the product has to be amazing, has to be perfect. But at a certain scale, like that's impossible. What you want is not how good can it be. You can be how less crap can it be. So you need like a quality floor to go, it cannot fall below this. It must always meet this requirement, and this requirement to go out the door. Yeah, it's not going to be the absolute best, most polished, most refined thing, but like a million and one light globes are produced every day out of China or various manufacturing areas around the world, and they take a sample of all of the things, all the globes that they produce. They plug them in and they see how long they run for, and they've got to meet a minimum number of hours, or they've got to be turned on and off a certain amount of times, and that's what is the quality pass. And that's the kind of thing. It's like, what is your quality floor? You can absolutely have that really, really high, but it means that like day in, day out, you're always going to have a superior product. And of occasion, you might have something goes wrong, but if it does, you've got a process to then go, what went wrong? Why? Let's fix it. Here's how it's done. And even that process is refined, efficient, and cost effective. So yeah, it's just good business. So I guess that it's a pretty short, sharp, and punchy episode for today. Did you have any other points or comments you wanted to share or thoughts?
Trying to get what is ISO and what is Australian standard into a 10 to 15-minute video is impossible. So I guess what I'd say is, if you are interested in learning more, come and check out the community, because we've got people across supply chain, engineering, logistics, people who've been in uniform, people who have supported people in uniform, and that's where the knowledge really comes. You understand what you don't know, and then ask the right person the right question to find out exactly what you do need to know. And that's what we
Yeah,
can do.
we've even got the scientists and academics. So I think a lot of times people are very technically sound, but they need that commercial experience, and that's what we can bring within the community is, how do we commercialize that amazing idea? How do we get it in front of the right people with the right positioning so that they'll go, sounds good, here's a check, and let's go. So if that sounds like you, please check out the Relevate Defense community, get in touch with us, and let's have a chat. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching. I hope you found that useful. And don't forget to check out some of the other videos. Give us a like, a subscribe. And if you've got any other questions, let us know in the comments so we can actually answer you in the next video. But otherwise, you take care.